Good afternoon. You're watching Business World Live. I'm Jes Delos Santos. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today, Thursday. Kicking things off with flag carrier Philippine Airlines. That's after it posted a record loss last year. We're talking 73 billion pesos for full year 2020. That's leaps and bounds from the 10.3 billion peso shortfall that they had back in 2019. So what gives, considering that the company reduced expenses last year by 46%? Well, according to Lucia Tan, the reduced flights due to travel restrictions caused revenue to plummet by 64% for this year at least. In the first 3 months, losses have slimmed down to 8.6 billion pesos from 9.4 billion pesos in the first quarter of 2020. Revenue, likewise, is down by 74% to 8.3 billion pesos this time. PAL Holdings is banking on a comprehensive restructuring plan. It's already on the final stages, and they have drawn, of course, on bridge funding, support from majority shareholders, deferred payments to lessors as well, and a laying off of employees or a retrenchment program. Now, PAL assures that flights and operations will not be affected by the restructuring and that more flights are in the offing as travel curbs ease. After that release, of course, PAL Holdings went on a trading halt. Last price still is at 6 pesos and 5 centavos a share, but year to date, looking at how PAL has been performing, it has already sank 7.6%, really unable to recover so far as equity space is concerned. Now, while PAL shares have yet to recover this year, the main index, on the other hand, has been on a streak. It's only down, look at this, 3.5% so far this year. But that, of course, hit a bump today. Shares declined by 1.25%. As you can see right here, it has been a downhill track here from the start of the day's trading session. That, of course, is on the back of concerns that market inflows could go the opposite route after the Fed sped up their expected pace of policy tightening. Now, Rachel Cruz of AP Securities says the hawkish stance has strengthened the dollar, and that's driving weakness in the equity space over fears that hot money flows will actually reverse. But then again, she's saying this could all just be temporary and a knee-jerk reaction as the Fed has yet to make any concrete action. For today, however, foreigners sold off local stocks at sales of 5.2 billion pesos, extending net foreign selling to a third day. Majority of stocks today as well on the downside, with URC losing the most here. That's down 4.1%. Bloomberry also sliding by 3.1%. Megaworld also in the red. That's even after they announced what could be the country's biggest REIT listing at 27.3 billion pesos. They sank 2.75% today. Now its parent Alliance Global is ending the day flat, even after it did say that revenue had a sizable boost from their international operations, particularly in their liquor unit. That, of course, is under Emperador. Emperador, in fact, contributed the lion's share in Alliance Global's consolidated revenue in 2020 at 41%. Alliance Global may have been unchanged today at 10 pesos and 28 centavos a share. But look at Emperador right there, the day's best performer. That is up 0.8% to 10 pesos and 8 centavos a share. The tourism department says appetite for domestic travel remains strong amid the pandemic. Speaking to Business World Live earlier today, Tourism Undersecretary Benito Bengzon said Filipino tourists now opt for more open-air travel destinations and activities that require well-ventilated and open spaces. The DOT is working on a recovery plan to aid tourism businesses bounce back and assist displaced workers in the sector through financial assistance. Various proposals for tourism reopening are also being discussed. The department also welcomes the safe resumption of several tourism-related businesses, saying that up to this point, no COVID-19 incident has been directly linked to tourism. Now, joblessness in the country fell to 26% in May, slightly down compared to figures in November last year. That is according to the social weather stations. This translates to about 12.2 million jobless Filipinos. Joblessness fell in Metro Manila and Balance Luzon. However, it rose in Visayas and Mindanao. The decline in joblessness was also more evident among women and those in the 25 to 34-year-old age bracket. Joblessness, according to the SWS, reached a record high of 45.5% in July of last year in the thick of the pandemic in the country. Now, the rate has steadily declined since, but not enough to settle at pre-pandemic levels. The COVID-19 pandemic has put to the fore the need for corporate social responsibility, but doing so also comes with challenges. Now, how then can organizations effectively pivot to respond to those in need? Now, let's find out how through Reginald Andal. He is the chairperson of LCF CSR Expo and Conference, and he is also the executive director of Manila Water Foundation. Good afternoon, Reginald.
Good afternoon, Jes. Thank you for having me.
All right, so how big of a game changer is the pandemic in terms of corporate social responsibility?
Wow, the pandemic is really a game changer in terms of the corporate social responsibility. Many describe the current situation as unprecedented, especially its effects in terms of scale and scope to health, economic, and social components. And these are complex issues which would need innovative solutions. So this is where the call for corporate social responsibility, its model, program, and delivery, the overall landscape to change and adopt. We have seen there's been a lot of changes from physical to digital, from individual to collective, and from one sector to multi-sector. So many CSR organizations and corporations with CSR programs pivoting in a way that they can immediately respond to the urgent needs of our families and communities during this pandemic.
Now, let's get more focused here, Reginald. In terms of the needs that are being addressed by foundations and organizations, what has been the primary change when it comes to these needs that are being addressed?
Right. The pandemic highlighted actually all the societal issues that our country is facing. And much of this have been continuously happening, but become even more apparent now due to the advanced communications and technology. But there are three components that we have seen during the pandemic. Health, of course, the physical, the mental health, environmental health. Also in terms of economic, the food, address the poverty and hunger and even the unemployment, and social. Some domestic abuses, of course, education, with different learning modalities. So we have seen all these societal issues being highlighted during this pandemic.
But what do you think were the weaknesses when it comes to CSR activities? What were the weaknesses that were exposed because of the pandemic, and how should organizations work around those loopholes?
I'd like to see the individual mindset be one of the weaknesses, even pre-pandemic. But this situation also highlighted the collective action of the private sector, which complements the efforts of our government to mitigate the impact of the pandemic. Because corporations now practicing CSR have subscribed already to the sustainability and people-centered approach on its programs. Like the NGOs and the other CSOs, CSR practitioners now implement community initiatives for people at the core of the development process, applying the principles of participatory, inclusive, sustainable, and innovative in order to reach the full impact of the projects. This is why we don't just call CSR as corporate social responsibility anymore, but CSR also stands for collective social responsibility.
Okay, that's a good one. Well, one of course, the primary changes, not just in CSR activities, but as a whole, is of course there's been a shift to digital. A lot of organizations had to make that transition. You did allude to this earlier, but how big of a transition did foundations at least had to go through in conducting CSR activities when it comes to shifting to digital at least?
There's an interesting study about it that the League of Corporate Foundations has conducted. About 70% of our members, we are currently about 97 member organizations now, 70% of us have pivoted their programs. Of course, utilizing the technology in terms of the delivery of corporate social responsibility, because the scale and depth require a different and disruptive approach now through innovation. And there will be a lot more innovation, something more exponential and far-reaching with more dynamic thinking to address the sustainability challenges. I'll give you just two examples, one of which, during the pandemic, there has been a lot of demand, of course, for fruits and vegetables. But through the mobility restrictions, some of our farmers cannot go and travel through the farm to market road and bring their goods to the markets. What some organizations did is come up with an app that anyone can request for these goods. And the farmers will just go directly to the markets and bring the goods to the consumers directly. So they don't have to wait for some time and some days anymore just to sell their products, but it's now directly between the farmers and the consumers. Another example is the tree planting. We would, of course, imagine that you have to be present in the mountain planting the trees. But because also of some financial inclusion apps, what they did is their points, they just have to donate it to some institutions who are already at the ground, and they will be the ones to plant the trees for you. And that's what we call the virtual tree planting. So these are just two of the major examples where our CSR practitioners are utilizing the technology so that they can deliver still their mandate and reach out to the communities and families in need.
Okay, and lastly now, Reginald, of course, before we let you go, you have an upcoming expo and conference. What can we expect from that?
We are actually inviting everyone to join us in the 19th LCF CSR Expo and Conference. This would be, of course, a platform, a venue for us to share our insights and best fit practices towards CSR, or corporate social responsibility and sustainability. Our theme is rebuilding together with a changing landscape of CSR. We would like to believe after all of these situations, we will be together, implement CSR or social good efforts, and we will be able to recover and rebuild together. One of our speakers is the person who came up with the approach, the 3P approach, the triple bottom line approach: people, planet, and profit. Mr. John Elkington himself will be our keynote speaker. So we are inviting all our CSR and sustainability advocates to join us in this 19th LCF CSR Expo and Conference.
All right, something to be watching out for. Thank you so much for your insights and your time this afternoon. Again, Reginald Andal, Chairperson of the LCF CSR Expo and Conference. Thank you, Reginald.
Thank you, Jes.
And those are the biggest stories this trading day, June 17, 2021. Catch Businessworld live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jes Delos Santos. We are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.